Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine you are standing in the middle of a vast, shifting desert. The wind is howling, erasing your footprints as fast as you can make them. Behind you, the city you once called home is nothing but smoke and memory. Your leaders have failed, your foundations have crumbled, and the future feels like an impenetrable wall of mist. Where do you turn when everything you thought was permanent turns out to be temporary? This was the exact crisis facing the people of Israel when the fourth book of the Psalms was compiled. They were in exile, lost in the shadows of Babylon, mourning a kingdom that had fallen. They were asking the same questions many of us ask today in our fast-paced, often chaotic world. Does anyone see us? Is there a power higher than the rising and falling of nations? Is there a place where we truly belong? Today, we are diving into a collection of ancient poetry that changed the course of history. Psalms 90 through 106, Book 4 of the Psalter, is not just a religious text, it is a masterpiece of psychological and spiritual resilience. It is a cinematic journey that moves from the dusty wilderness of Moses to the glorious throne room of the universe. It is a journey that teaches us how to find a home that no war, no time, and no tragedy can ever take away. If you've been feeling restless, if you've been searching for a sense of permanence in an age of anxiety, stay with me. These words were written for you. Let's step back into the ancient light. The ancient prayer, the breath and the rock. To understand where we are going, we have to go back, far back, before the kings, before the golden temples, to a man standing on the edge of eternity. We begin with Psalm 90. It is the only psalm in the entire collection attributed to Moses, the man of God. Think about the weight of that. Moses saw the splendor of Egypt fall. He saw the Red Sea part. He spent 40 years wandering in a circle, watching an entire generation fade away into the sand. He knew better than anyone the crushing weight of time. And so he begins not with a complaint, but with a profound realization. Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. For the American listener today, this is a radical shift in perspective. We spend our lives building dwelling places, houses, careers, digital legacies. We want to leave a mark. But Moses looks at the towering mountains and says, before they were born, you were there. He creates a sharp, almost painful contrast between the God who is from everlasting to everlasting and us creatures who are like grass that sprouts in the morning and withers by sunset. There is a haunting beauty in the way Moses describes our lifespan. He calls our years a sigh, a fleeting breath in the cold air. It sounds somber, perhaps even a bit dark, but it serves a vital purpose. It strips away the illusions. It forces us to stop running from our mortality and instead embrace it with wisdom. Teach us to number our days, Moses prays. This isn't a request to know the date of our death, it's a plea to understand the value of our time. In a culture that tries to sell us eternal youth and distraction, Psalm 90 invites us to look at the sunset and find peace in our smallness. Because when we realize we are small, we can finally lean on the one who is great. Moses ends this ancient prayer with a beautiful, desperate cry. Let the favor of the Lord our God be upon us and establish the work of our hands. He is asking that our brief sigh of a life might actually mean something. He's asking that the eternal would touch our temporary efforts and make them last. It's a prayer for significance, a prayer that resonates in the heart of every person who has ever wondered if their life truly matters. As we move from the desert of Moses toward the secret places of protection, remember this: you are a breath, yes, but you are a breath sustained by the one who created the stars, and that changes everything. The secret place and the song of Sabbath, architects of anxiety, no more. If Psalm 90 showed us the vast, overwhelming scale of time, Psalm 91 brings us into the most intimate space imaginable. In the American experience, we are obsessed with security. We build gated communities, we buy insurance, we install alarm systems, and we constantly scan the horizon for the next economic or social storm. We are a culture of watchmen, yet we often feel more vulnerable than ever. Enter the opening lines of Psalm 91, words that have been whispered by soldiers on the eve of battle and by mothers over the cradles of their children for millennia. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. The imagery here is cinematic. To dwell is not to visit. It's not a weekend getaway or a quick prayer when things go wrong. It is a residence. It's the Hebrew concept of sether, a secret hiding place, a covert. Imagine a great canyon during a desert storm. The wind is howling, the flash floods are rising, but you are tucked deep into a crevice of the rock, shielded by the very mountain itself. The psalmist uses 4 specific names for God here, each one a different layer of armor. Elyon, the Most High; Shaddai, the Almighty; Yahweh, the Lord; and Elohim, my God. It is as if he is building a fortress out of language. For those of us living in an age of doom scrolling and 24-hour news cycles, the middle of this psalm feels incredibly modern. It speaks of the terror of the night and the arrow that flies by day, the pestilence that stalks in the darkness and the plague that destroys at midday. These aren't just ancient fears, they are the anxieties of our modern hearts. The fear of what we can't see, the fear of the sudden tragedy. But then comes the most comforting image in all of Scripture, the wings. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. It's an image of fierce, maternal protection. Have you ever seen a bird during a storm? It doesn't fly away, it pulls its young underneath its breast, taking the beating of the rain so the little ones stay dry. The psalmist is telling us that the creator of the universe is not a distant clockmaker. He is a protector who gets his feathers wet so that you don't have to drown. And then the psalm shifts. God himself begins to speak. He promises that because we love him, he will rescue us. He doesn't promise a life without trouble. He promises to be with us in trouble. That distinction is the key to spiritual resilience. It's the difference between an easy life and a meaningful one. But how do we sustain this level of trust? How do we stay in that secret place when the world demands our attention? The answer comes in Psalm 92, the only psalm in the Bible explicitly titled, A Song for the Sabbath. In our 24/7 hustle culture, Sabbath can feel like a luxury we can't afford. We think that if we stop moving, we'll fall behind. But Psalm 92 argues that stopping is the only way to see clearly. It is good to praise the Lord, it begins, to proclaim your love in the morning and your faithfulness at night. The Sabbath isn't just about quitting work, it's about recalibrating our souls. The psalmist looks at the world and sees 2 types of people. There are the wicked who spring up like grass, fast, flashy, but easily withered, echoing Moses in Psalm 90. And then there are the righteous. He describes the righteous using 2 of the most iconic trees of the ancient world, the palm and the cedar of Lebanon. The palm tree is flexible. It can bend in a hurricane without snapping. The cedar is massive and steady, its roots going deep into the mountain rock. This is the promise for those who dwell in the presence of God. They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green. Think about that. In a world that prizes the new, the young, and the fast, the Bible promises a life that gets better, deeper, and more green as it goes on. It's a vision of a life where aging isn't a decline into irrelevance, but a rise into a more profound fruitfulness. As we finish this section of our journey, let these 2 images sit in your mind: the shadow of the Almighty and the flourishing cedar. One is your protection, the other is your potential. You are safe, and you are growing. But the story doesn't end in the secret place. The secret place is where we find our strength. But we are about to see that the one who protects us is not just a personal refuge. He is the sovereign king of everything. The coronation of the king, an anthem for a shaking world. We move now from the quiet, hidden secret place into the vast, echoing throne room of the universe. If the previous chapters were about our personal need for safety, Psalms 93 through 100 are about the ultimate reality of who is in charge. In our modern world, we are constantly bombarded by the breaking news of shifting power. We watch leaders rise and fall, economies boom and bust, and social tides turn overnight. It leaves us with a deep, unsettling question. Is anyone actually driving the bus? The answer provided by this central section of Book 4 is a resounding, rhythmic declaration: the Lord reigns. Imagine you are standing on the shore of a violent ocean. The waves are towering, dark, cold, and seemingly unstoppable. This is the imagery of Psalm 93. The floods have lifted up their voice. The floods have lifted up their roaring. In ancient poetry, the sea often represented chaos, the untamable forces that threaten to swallow us whole. But above the noise of many waters, above the mighty breakers of the sea, the Lord sits enthroned. The psalmist isn't saying the storm isn't real, he's saying the storm is loud, but the King is louder. For an American audience that values stability and strength, this is the ultimate anchor. The world is firmly established. It cannot be moved. There is a cosmic order that transcends our daily chaos. As we move through Psalms 94 to 99, we encounter what scholars call the enthronement psalms. These are the coronation anthems of the Bible. They invite us to see God not just as a tribal deity or a personal helper, but as the rightful sovereign of the entire planet. Psalm 95 issues a call that many of us recognize from traditional liturgy. "Oh, come, let us sing for joy to the Lord." But it comes with a warning that is deeply relevant to our distracted age. It warns us not to harden our hearts, as the ancestors did in the wilderness. It's a reminder that recognizing God's kingship requires a posture of humility. We aren't the kings of our own lives. We are the sheep of his pasture. Then the energy shifts. We reach a crescendo in Psalms 96 and 98. Here, the command is to sing to the Lord a new song. Why a new song? Because God is doing something fresh. He isn't just a God of the past. He is the God of the future. In these verses, the entire creation joins the choir. This is some of the most cinematic poetry ever written. Imagine the Mediterranean Sea roaring in applause. Imagine the trees of the forest swaying and singing for joy. Imagine the rivers literally clapping their hands as the hills sing together. Why? Because the King is coming to judge the earth. Now, to a modern ear, the word judgment can sound scary or harsh. But in the context of the Psalms, judgment is good news. It means that every wrong will be made right. It means that the oppressed will find justice. It means that the darkness that has plagued human history will finally be pierced by a light that never fades. When the psalmist says God comes to judge with equity, it's a promise that the game is no longer rigged. This section reaches its peak with the world-famous Psalm 100, the Jubilate. It is a universal invitation. Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. It doesn't matter who you are, where you've been, or what you've done. The gates are open. In America, we talk a lot about belonging. We join clubs, we follow movements, we look for our tribe. Psalm 100 tells us that our primary belonging is found in the one who made us. It is he who made us, and we are his. We are invited to enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. The movement of these psalms is intentional. They take us from the fear of the floods to the joy of the temple. They remind us that while the world may be shaking, the throne is not. We don't have to carry the weight of the universe on our shoulders, because the King has already taken up the scepter. But as we bask in the glory of the King, we are forced to ask, what kind of king is he? Is he just powerful, or is he also good? Is he just a ruler, or is he a father? As we turn the page to the next section, we move from the majesty of the throne to the tenderness of a heart that remembers we are but dust. The symphony of mercy and the majesty of nature, a heart for the broken and the wild. We've seen the King on his throne, and we've heard the roar of the oceans acknowledging his power. But power on its own can be cold, it can be distant. In our own lives, we often encounter powerful systems, corporations, governments, even the relentless laws of physics that don't seem to care about our individual pain. We ask ourselves, does the creator of the stars actually care about my broken heart? In this section, Psalms 101 through 104, the camera lens zooms in. It moves from the cosmic to the deeply personal, and then out again to the intricate beauty of the natural world. It's a section that bridges the gap between the God of the universe and the God of my Monday morning. We begin with a commitment to integrity in Psalm 101. It's a leadership manifesto. The psalmist basically says, if I am to serve a holy king, I must lead a life of integrity. In a world where we are often told to fake it till you make it, Psalm 101 challenges us to be the same person in the dark that we are in the light. It's about the upright heart, the foundation of a life that truly matters. But then the mood shifts drastically. Psalm 102 is one of the most honest dark nights of the soul in all of literature. The writer is suffering. He feels like a pelican in the wilderness or an owl among the ruins. He's lonely, he's forgotten, and his life is fading like a shadow. For anyone listening who has ever felt isolated in a crowded city or felt like their prayers were bouncing off the ceiling, Psalm 102 is your voice. It proves that the Bible isn't afraid of your depression or your doubt. It gives you permission to cry out. And then the sun breaks through the clouds. We arrive at Psalm 103. If you only ever memorize one psalm in your life, let it be this one. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. This is the anthem of the redeemed. The psalmist begins to list the benefits of knowing God, and they are breathtaking. He forgives all your sins. He heals all your diseases. He redeems your life from the pit. But then he says something that hits the core of the human condition. He knows how we are formed. He remembers that we are dust. Think about that. God isn't surprised by your weakness. He isn't shocked by your mistakes. He is like a father who has compassion on his children. And then comes that famous, beautiful measurement. As far as the east is from the west, so far has he removed our transgressions from us. Think about the math of that. If you go north, you eventually reach the North Pole and start going south. But if you go east, you can travel forever and you will never, ever reach the west. That is the scale of the mercy being offered here. It is infinite. It is final. It is a clean slate. But the symphony doesn't stop with human emotions. It explodes into the great outdoors with Psalm 104. If Psalm 103 is about the inner world, Psalm 104 is a high-definition, National Geographic-style tour of the outer world. The psalmist looks at the world and sees a masterpiece of engineering and art. He sees God stretching out the heavens like a tent. He sees the springs gushing into the valleys, providing water for the wild donkeys. He sees the birds nesting in the cedars and the mountain goats on the high crags. He even mentions the Leviathan, the great sea monster, playing in the deep. There is a sense of playfulness and provision here. The world isn't just a machine, it's a household. Every creature, from the tiniest insect to the massive whale, looks to the Creator for their food in due season. It's a powerful reminder for us, living in our concrete jungles and digital bubbles, that we are part of a living, breathing ecosystem sustained by a generous hand. When we look at the stars or the mountains, we shouldn't feel insignificant. We should feel cared for. The same God who manages the orbit of the moon, Psalm 104-19, is the same God who heals the brokenhearted, Psalm 103. This section teaches us that the King of the universe is also the gardener of the soul. He is big enough to rule the storms and kind enough to remember that we are just dust breathed into life. But as we finish this celebration of mercy and nature, a question remains. What happens when we forget? What happens when the people who have seen these wonders turn their backs on the one who provided them? As we enter the final chapters of Book 4, we are going to look into the mirror of history, a mirror that reflects both our failures and God's relentless, stubborn faithfulness. The mirror of history, remembering our way home. We have reached the final act of this epic journey through Book 4. We've explored the vastness of eternity, the safety of the secret place, the majesty of the King's throne, and the tenderness of his mercy. But there is one final, essential question. How does this story actually play out in the messiness of human life? In Psalms 105 and 106, the Bible stops being abstract and starts being historical. It takes us on a journey through the national memory of a people. For a modern American audience, history is often something we try to outrun. We are a culture of the future, always looking for the next innovation. But these two Psalms argue that if you don't know where you've been, you can't possibly know where you're going. Think of these two Psalms as two sides of the same coin. Psalm 105 is the bright side. It's the highlight reel. It's a rhythmic, driving celebration of God's faithfulness. It goes all the way back to the beginning, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It tells the story of Joseph, who was sold as a slave only to become a savior. It recounts the plagues of Egypt, not as a story of destruction, but as a story of liberation. The theme of Psalm 105 is the covenant. It's the idea that God makes promises, and no matter how much time passes, he keeps them. He remembers his covenant forever, the psalmist cries. For anyone who has ever felt like they've been forgotten by life, or that the promises they were told have been broken, Psalm 105 is a reminder that there is a long game being played. God's clock doesn't move at the speed of our anxiety. He is faithful across centuries, not just minutes. But then we turn the page to Psalm 106, and the tone shifts. If Psalm 105 is the story of God's faithfulness, Psalm 106 is the honest, sometimes painful story of human faithlessness. It's a confession. The psalmist looks back at the same history and says, "We have sinned, even as our ancestors did." He talks about the rebellion at the Red Sea, the golden calf in the wilderness, and the constant cycle of forgetting. It's a mirror held up to the human soul. How often do we experience a miracle today, only to complain about our lack tomorrow? Yet, here is the miracle within the history. Psalm 106 doesn't end in judgment. It ends in hesed, the Hebrew word for unfailing, covenant, keeping love. Even when the people were at their worst, God heard their cry and took note of their distress. The message of this final section is clear. Our story is not defined by our failures, but by the one who refuses to give up on us. As Book 4 concludes, it leaves us with a prayer. Save us, Lord our God, and gather us from the nations, that we may give thanks to your holy name. It's a prayer for home. It's a prayer for a people who realize that their only true stability is found in the God of Moses, the King of the earth, and the Father of mercy. As I look back over these 17 Psalms, from the dusty wilderness of Psalm 90 to the historical echoes of Psalm 106, I am struck by one thing: resilience. In our modern high-speed lives, we are often overwhelmed by what we call the noise. The noise of politics, the noise of social media, the noise of our own inner critics. We feel like we are constantly reacting to a world that is out of our control. What Book 4 of the Psalms offers us is a great recalibration. It tells us that it's okay to be dust, that's our nature, but we are dust that belongs to an eternal King. When you realize that the one who manages the galaxies also knows the number of hairs on your head, your noise starts to fade. The power of this book is that it moves from me to we to him. It starts with our fear of death, moves through our need for protection, and ends with a celebration of a God who is bigger than our history. My personal takeaway for you is this: don't try to be the king of your own life. It's an exhausting job, and the benefits are terrible. Instead, find rest in the secret place. Let the King reign, and you just focus on the new song. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the fourth book of the Psalms. It's been an honor to walk through these ancient, powerful verses with you. I hope these words have brought a sense of peace to your day and a new perspective to your journey. If you found value in this storytelling experience, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps us continue to bring these biblical narratives to life with the depth they deserve. Don't forget to hit that like button and share this video with someone who might need a reminder of God's protection and faithfulness today. I'd love to hear from you in the comments which psalm from this collection resonated with you the most. Is it the protection of Psalm 91, the mercy of Psalm 103, or perhaps the perspective of Psalm 90? Let's start a conversation below. Stay tuned for our next journey through the scriptures. Until then, remember, you are not wandering in the wilderness alone. You have a dwelling place that is from everlasting to everlasting. Peace be with you.